my name is Beck and welcome to a spoiler-free and also a spoiler review for The Final Empire, which is the first Mistborn book in Era 1 by Brandon Sanderson. This is a book that is set in a fantasy world, so it's a high fantasy, but it's written in a way that is really appealing to multitudes of readers. So if you've read a lot of fantasy before, you can still pick this up and enjoy it. If you haven't read any fantasy at all, you can pick this up and still enjoy it. So this follows Vin and a multitude of other characters. It is multiple perspectives, so it's not just Vin, but it is mainly Vin. And she's a street urchin, so she's trying to survive on the streets in this city of Luthadel, which is set in this fantasy world where ash falls from the sky. We're kind of in this dystopia that is trying to disguise itself as a utopia. So anyone who is noble and has power is very well off, and anybody else are called the Skaa, which is SKAA, and they have to live on the streets. And a lot of the time they aren't even viewed as people. They're viewed as slaves or as things to be used up and killed and tossed aside. So that is what we are ultimately introduced to in the first couple of chapters. And I've forgotten actually how dark it was at the beginning, because it really sets up all these noblemen to be horrible and power hungry and corrupt people. And ultimately Kelsier, who is the leader of this heist crew, he's the one who's like, I want to overthrow this and I don't want this to be our way of living anymore. So there is a Lord Ruler, and he is the god, or this immortal being who is ruling over the city of Luthadel in general, and he's the one who is in charge of the oppressive government. So they've got inquisitors, they've got obligators, and they've got all the noble people, and then the Skaa as well. So the inquisitors and obligators are the ones that all enforce his laws. The obligators aren't quite at the inquisitors level. The inquisitors have metal spikes through their eyes, and they've got this ability that is like Mistings and Mistborn. They've got another level of being able to enforce this oppression on everybody, which is a magical element to them. So we're getting back now to Vin, and she is a girl who discovered that she has this kind of magical ability that she doesn't really know how to use very well. And because of her and having a run-in with somebody that flags her to Kelsier, he's like, I want her on my thieving crew. And so they are trying to together overthrow an oppressive government regime. And this is really a heist book set in a fantasy world, which I loved. And this was a reread for me. The first time I read it, I gave it 4 stars. The second time I'm giving it a 5, because not only does Brandon Sanderson set out his world building so clearly and his pacing and plotting, he also really puts foreshadowing in there that you really don't notice until the second read through. Like, none of the things that I picked up this time made sense to me in their context the second time. So it's not like if you pick up on these foreshadowing things, you're going to spoil yourself. They were hard to pick up. They were hard to discover. They were quite subtle, and I really enjoyed them. So like I said, I gave it 5 stars. I do wish that Sanderson did his characterization like a little bit better, because this is one of his earlier works, you can really tell. And the main character Vin had a whole thing of not like other girls syndrome, and she really struggled with her identity, with femininity, and ultimately I do really like that adventure of hers, and it's still ongoing. I really like her self-discovery and her self-evaluation, so it really leapt into new stepping stones of, here is a character, I am developing her, and the characters around her as well. They've all got their motivations, but they did feel interesting. They did feel like they were multifaceted, but his newer characters, especially in Stormlight, really went to that next level. So you can just see the difference. But I did really enjoy this. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm going to jump into spoilers. So if you haven't read this, don't watch this next part, because I'm going to spoil this book. I forgot in this how cataclysmic the ending was, with all these different characters, each coming into their own, and in some cases just ending their story. So I remember that Kelsier died, but I forgot how well he set everything up in order to facilitate that. And that's a really cleverly and neatly plotted work, when something can be that big of a plot twist and have all these little ripple effects that really work out for him. Like, what I mean is leaving the letter for Vin and giving her a kind of mission, giving all the others pieces of power, so like running the army and being a political head. I like that all the members of the crew got their own capabilities and their own thing to look after and be responsible for. I also really loved that Vin decided to call Kelsia on his crap, because she's like, no, you are a nobleman. You hate noblemen and you kill them, but you are a nobleman. Look around you. You don't live in the squalor that I had to live in when I was living in the street without a roof over my head. I was worried about getting assaulted. I was worried about being killed, and I had no one to look out for me. And so she really just gave it to him, and I loved it when that happened, because she really just called him on all of his high airy principles and his perception of the world and how different it was for him compared to her. I liked the way that Brandon Sanderson really, really heavily plays with class in this book, and that was really illustrated in one of those scenes, and it was really called out, which I really liked. Again, at the beginning, I was really surprised about the discussion of slavery and how stark and blunt it was. I did not remember that about this book, and how the women, the Scar women, were used up by this nobleman and then killed. So they were basically raped and murdered, and how this was just an accepted thing that all the nobles do. It was like a rite of passage. You have to take a Scar woman away from her family, away from her partner, and you've got to kill her after you're finished. It's horrible, it's horrendous and disgusting, and there are characters who condone this in this book, and obviously those are the noblemen that they are going to likely kill. And then there are other characters like Ellen, whom I love, who is disgusted by the way things are and are forced into certain things as well. And I really like the way that he's such a bookish character, and he's got all of this understanding of politics and everything, and how him and Vin's relationship in the early days started here. But it was annoying that she just decided to say like, oh yeah, I do love him, when, girl, you really don't know him. But I get it. I understand. They are like the love interest, like capital letters, the love interest in this story. And I think they're done very well, given that Sanderson doesn't really do romance very well. But I like their characters. They play off quite well. They've got great banter, and I really enjoyed reading about them. Other characters that had great banter were Sazed and Kelsia, not in a romance way, but in a partnership way. And there was a discussion where Sazed is trying to find the right religion for people, because he knows like 500 different religions, and so he kind of likes to almost pitch them to people to see if anyone connects with them. And he's pitching or talking about and reminding Kelsia of this religion, and I can't remember exactly what religion it was. I know it's about 495 pages into the book, at least in this edition, and it's just them by themselves having a conversation. And Sazed is talking about these particular people and how they believed in this like godlike figure, but this figure was just a man, and for him to be believed in, he had to die so that they'd martyr him and then believe in his memory. And that was a massive foreshadowing element, because Sazed was basically telling the reader, oh yeah, in this section, I'm highlighting the fact that Kelsia is going to die. So all of the Scar people rise up in a rebellion because they believe in him as the survivor, and they're going to believe in his memory, and that's what is going to push the story. And that just gave me chills when I was reading it, because I didn't expect such nuanced foreshadowing in there, but it was so cool. And something else that was really small but was mentioned and sprinkled in a few times to set up for the second book is the Kandra. And I know that Lord Reno, I don't know how to pronounce his actual name, but I know how it's written. Lord Reno is the Kandra, and that's talked about in here but not very much. And the Mistwraiths are shown at the beginning, and then later on it shows the Kandra and how he basically ate Kelsia's bones and body so that he could become a version of Kelsia. And it's revealed that there are those supernatural beings in the world, and that the Venture family, so Ellen's family, also have a Kandra, but it's really discussed in like side conversations, and it's mentioned offhand a few times. So the terminology is thrown in a couple of times for the ending setup, so that that reveal means something. And the first time around, I understood that reveal without even noticing all those little like sprinklings of the word Kandra and the introduction of the Mistwraiths. I was like, I can see all the setup to that point revealed very gradually and very subtly throughout this book. So I think this book was really clever. I think it had a ton of reread value. I've obviously really enjoyed myself. There were moments in here that I got emotional, where I got a little bit teary. I didn't cry, but I got teary, especially with Kelsia's kind of final words to Vin about trust and how she wanted to save her own skin instead of going into the square and saving other people. And she tried to stop Kelsia from doing that, and he's like, you have a lot to learn about trust and friendship. And then he went off, and obviously he died after that. So those are like the last physical words he said to her. Obviously he wrote the letter, and that's a little bit different, but now when she was stuck in that jail cell and she was the Lord Ruler's prisoner, she felt those things about Sazed, and she's like, I don't leave people behind. So it's really cool to see that character growth, and I liked seeing additionally Furakemi in here, because that's something that isn't really shown to you very much until the second era of Mistborn, and that's when I became a lot more familiar with it. But it's really cool to see it set up in here as well with Sazed and with the Lord Ruler, and I forgot that he was also a Furochemist, and I loved the descriptions afterwards. They were kind of told to you in a debrief almost of like, here is everything and how it played out, and now here is the technical description. But to be honest, I really don't mind that kind of setup. I think it was done really well because it showed me what it was doing and then it explained it afterwards, and I'm a fan of that. So I gave this 5 stars. If you liked this book, let me know. If you had a particular favorite scene, let me know. But thank you so much for watching this video. I'll come chat to you down below in the comments, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.